Good afternoon. Well, blow me down. I thought the numbers we were concentrating on involved the number of seats that Gillard and Abbott are horse trading over in Canberra to see who gets the keys to the lodge. But now there's another set, and for the Coalition, they're not a beautiful set of numbers, as Paul Keating used to say. The Treasury figures are out. They have costed the Coalition's election promises, and they say there's a black hole that could be as high as between $7 and $11 billion. And no wonder Treasurer Wayne Swan dived on the news like a seagull on a hot chip, and no wonder Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey sounded flat on Mitchell this morning, especially when Tony Windsor, one of the three amigos, described the costings as a black hole and talked about trust. And yet, Abbott, Hockey and Andrew Robb, they fronted the media today to claim that their numbers are right, they still stand by them, and they will deliver in government. They claim these billion-dollar deficiencies are based on different interpretations. I guess that's one way to look at it. Now, Tony Abbott today was asked if this wasn't a bad look in the midst of the delicate negotiations, that it created a bad perception. But Abbott said he wasn't into debating perceptions. He was just one of 22 million Australians. Well, sure, but he's one of only two people trying to be Prime Minister, and he will get possession of the cash register. And to add to the fiscal puzzle, Tony Abbott claims that after 4 years, if he gets into office, the Treasury figures still show that the Coalition will produce a surplus of around $800 million compared to a Labor government surplus of less than $200 million. Now, the bottom line, to use those Canberra buzzwords, is that the Coalition was reluctant to let Treasury examine their books, and once they did, they were found wanting. I suspect, though, that out there in the electorate, people are suffering poly-fatigue. There's a feeling of get it over with. Either come up with a solution, form a sustainable government, or go back to the polls. Right now, we all seem to be staring down a black hole, and the view isn't good. On the line, the political editor of the Financial Review, Laura Tingle. Good afternoon.
G'day, Darren.
I know you've only got a very short time because you're going off to Julia Gillard's press conference, I would imagine.
That's right.
Talk to me about the numbers. You're with the Fin Review, you must be able to put a better spin on this than anybody because I don't understand it all.
Oh, spin. We're not going to do any spin here at the Fin Review, Darren. But look, the Coalition is arguing that it's between $7 and $11 billion. But if you look at what the Treasury is really saying, they're saying there is a whole of about $10.6 billion in the Coalition's savings, which, considering their savings were only supposed to be 11.5, is a pretty bad strike rate, you'd have to say. Virtually, all, the Treasury has essentially said all of the savings don't add up.
So the savings that they boasted about during the election ad nauseum aren't really there?
They aren't. There's a whole range of reasons for that. In some cases, they've said that they're going to spend money that has already been spent. In some cases, they've basically just cooked the books by playing with, contingency reserves and other accounting things. They've said that they can save money from the pharmaceutical benefit scheme that the government had already included in the budget and had actually and the Coalition had read the figure wrong. And there's a whole range of figures where Treasury just says the numbers don't add up. Including on things like employment participation, where there's $1 billion hole just all by itself.
Well, how can they then say that Treasury reckons that they'll produce a surplus of $800 million in 4 years' time compared to the Labor government surplus of less than $200 million?
Well, no, what they're saying is that the net impact of the Coalition savings is an improvement of $800 million. They're not saying that the surplus, that will be the surplus. They're saying that the deficit under the Coalition would be $42 billion as opposed to... Yeah, so it's only an $800 million improvement on what would otherwise be the case.
Now they made it pretty. They got up there, the three of them. I mean, we seem to talk in threes these days, and the three Hockey and Robb got there. I heard Joe Hockey on Neil Mitchell this morning sounded almost depressed. He said pretty flat about the whole thing. Maybe they got something to be flat about.
You would think they had something to be pretty flat about. I think the bottom line, as you said earlier on, was that they clearly knew that there were problems with these numbers before the election and dodged getting them costed for that very reason. They apparently weren't at all surprised by the holes that Treasury found in them, and essentially now they're just putting on as brave and, let's face it, brazen a face as they can on this because they're saying we're disputing the basis of the figures, but everything that Treasury says is one, perfectly reasonable. And if you think about, the interests in the room, here you've got on one side bureaucrats who know that these politicians might be their bosses in a week and who have to rather courageously say to them, look, sorry, we can't sign off on this. We have legal obligations to put our best professional judgment on these costings. and on the other side, a group of politicians who are pretty desperate to save their bacon.
Yeah. Now, one quickly, because I know you have to go. One more question. Wilkie has said he will support the government. Comes as no surprise. As I've said before, he stood against John Howard as a Green in Bennelong in 2004. So it doesn't really surprise anybody, does it?
Well, I suppose when you say it like that, it doesn't sound like a surprise, but nobody was really too sure about where he'd go. But I think the interesting thing, Darren, is that in announcing he'd back Labor, he's revealed that Tony Abbott, amongst other things, promised him $1 billion for a hospital in Tasmania to get him on side. But Andrew Wilkie has said that the costing figure made the coalition look very non-credible, and he's accepted a much smaller and more conservative promise from the Prime Minister instead of taking the $1 billion from Tony Abbott. So that the costings blowout has had a huge impact on the coalition's negotiations with independents.
Funny, Tasmanian hospitals have a habit of getting politicians into trouble, don't they?
They do, and Tony Abbott in particular.
Yeah, there we are. All right, Laura, thanks for that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Political editor for the Financial Review, Laura Tingle. Take some of your calls on this now. You've got the Green Alliance we talked about yesterday. It is getting stronger because Andrew Wilkie, as I said, stood as a Green candidate. He had a falling out with the Greens, but obviously his philosophy still stays about the same. So now you get to 74 for Labor. They are too short of a majority. They've got the three amigos still out there. They need to swing two of those three. They may get Oakeshott. They could get Tony Windsor. I doubt I'm pretty sure, I bet they will not get Catter, and they won't get Crook from out west. So that's where it all lies now.